Okay, so hoping to rely on the wonders of technology again. Up next, we've got Chalice Mining Limited, Alex Dorsch, Managing Director. Caught up in the WA border closures, Alex joins us virtually from the East Coast. I think it's Noosa, is what I'm led to believe. Alex was appointed Managing Director of Chalice Mining in November 2018 and has led the company through an exceptional growth period following the Julimar discovery in early 2020. Alex has diverse experience in a variety of leadership roles across the resource sector as a management consultant, engineer, project manager and corporate advisor. A graduate of the University of Adelaide, I believe Alex is a keen golfer and he tells me that he likes to hustle punters on the fairways of Perth. So hope you're there, Alex, and welcome to Diggers.
Thanks, Paul. Great to present again at this great mining forum. So thanks to the organisers of Diggers and Dealers once again for hosting us. I'll be presenting on Chalice, obviously another spectacular year for Chalice with our Julimar PGE nickel, copper, cobalt, gold discovery in Western Australia. So our usual forward-looking statements, disclosures available on the next slide. I'll be able to read that in our own time. So as most people will be aware, Chalice is an exploration specialist with a globally significant discovery in Western Australia. So Julimar really sort of took the headlines and stole the headlines during the COVID pandemic in March last year. And what we found is a shallow, high-grade PGE nickel, copper, cobalt, gold discovery. It's Australia's first major palladium discovery. Really, there's no other material PGE deposits in Australia, so it's quite an eye-catching one for the industry. But it hosts a material quantum of nickel, copper, cobalt, as well, to a lesser extent, platinum and gold as well. So it is a true polymetallic deposit that's shaping up as a world-class strategic deposit of the critical green metals, those metals that everyone's talking about at the moment to really transition our energy system and decarbonise the global economy. And to top that all off, it's just on the outskirts of Perth, in the world's best mining jurisdiction, Western Australia. So with the nickel, copper, cobalt content, we're highly leveraged to the battery and electric vehicle adoption thematic, but also the one emerging on the horizon, hydrogen. The PGEs especially have a very meaningful role to play in hydrogen production through the electrolysis of water and the production of green hydrogen, but also the actual storage, transportation, and use of hydrogen in fuel cells. And I should mention also nickel there is no doubt going to play a key role given the stainless steels that are required for storing and transporting hydrogen. We recently released an intention to demerge our gold portfolio. There has been some strong interest in our gold assets centred around our 5,000 square kilometre landholding in Victoria. We've made several new high-grade intersections there recently. Got some fantastic prospects. So we're looking to put that in a standalone ASX-listed vehicle towards the end of this year. So one to watch in the latter part of 2021. The Chalice team is well-funded, a high-performance team with an excellent track record. I think most in the industry would be aware of Chalice and its credentials. You know, we've got a proven ability to not only find them, but really delineate and define mining operations. Over 116 million in cash and investments as of the last quarter, and it's been a spectacular journey for shareholders. As I mentioned, over 4,000% TSR since the Julimar discovery. The next slide shows the green metals credentials of our deposit. So palladium, probably the underweight or underemphasized champion in climate change. It does a lot of the heavy lifting in taking out a very potent greenhouse gas out of exhaust emissions currently, and really catalytic converters in internal combustion engines have been palladium dominant for many years just because of that ability to strip out nitrous oxides, which as I said, are very potent greenhouse gases. But it is a very tight market and dominated by one jurisdiction, and that's Russia. Nickel, copper, they go without saying, they are immensely important for clean energy technologies. And platinum is emerging as sort of the favoured catalyst at the moment. for use in fuel cells and also production of green hydrogen. Again, a very challenged, supply thematic there, given that the majority of platinum is produced comes out of South Africa. So having an Australian deposit is significant for the nation and certainly for the industry. On the next slide illustrates, I guess, the journey we've been on since the Julimar discovery. As I said, over 4,000% total shareholder return since that discovery in March last year. It was a shallow, high-grade discovery, as no doubt all would remember. We confirmed that with about 5 drill holes surrounding the discovery hole and then raised $30 million in May last year at $1.05. And then we really started to show the upside going into the state forest area there to the north in September, and then raised further $115 million at $3.75 towards the end of last year. We've subsequently been added into the ASX 300, followed by ASX 200 within the last 6 months, which has been a fantastic run. And we're not done yet. See still a huge amount of upside to our discovery and new province that we've found. So the next slide has some nice pictures of core from our discovery. No doubt happy viewing for many in the audience there. So the next slide is, our discovery, as no doubt people are aware, is just on the outskirts of Perth, about 70 kilometres away from the CBD as the crow flies. We staked this area in early 2018 and made a first hole discovery. And what made that even more important was that there was fresh, high-grade nickel copper PG sulfides, basically near surface. The first discovery is called Gonville. It's located at the southern tip of a greater than 26 kilometre long intrusive complex called the Julimar complex. It's basically undrilled. So that's where the upside here is significant. We only drilled at Gonville really because that's the place we could get access to the intrusive complex. So the 24 kilometres of undrilled strike length in the Julimar State Forest are still yet to be drilled, but we're hoping to change that later this quarter. We've actually purchased the farms that host the discovery and the deposit at Gonville, as well, over 21 square kilometres of farmland now in Chalice's hands. And on top of that, 8,000 square kilometres of regional licence holding surrounding Julimar and within our new West Yilgarn nickel copper PG province. So for anyone doubting whether we've found a new province, you can see the quantum of juniors in the area coming up with sniffs of mineralisation sort of in the Julimar locality, and we're getting indications all the way up almost into the Pilbara that this western part of the Yilgarn Craton is live and prospective for also magmatic nickel copper PGE deposits like Julimar. So being in a favourable location, it gives us great access to infrastructure, major highway, rail, power, and a very large and very capable workforce there in Perth. So it's quite amazing that in 2021 this part of the world is still sparsely unexplored, and we're hoping to change that over the course of the next year or two. In terms of our focus on the environment and community, on the next slide, you can see in terms of the mining operations that are in and around state forest areas in that southwest part of WA are significant. Boddington, Alcoa, Worsley, Greenbushes, all proximal, all within state forest areas. So it's a well-trodden path for the state to approve mining activities in and around state forest. We've got a proactive approach. We're doing the right things in terms of environmental baselining work. We've done some flora, fauna, dieback surveys already within our exploration corridor in the Julimar State Forest. And we've got low-impact drilling techniques with small track-mounted diamond rigs that can navigate around the vegetation within the Julimar State Forest. We're already using a number of those on private farmland, and that's what we've proposed to use for the first pass of drilling in that at that Hartog target, which, as I said, should start later this quarter. Our communities in the local area, we've put in great work with those local communities and the key stakeholders there. We've got a significant employment opportunity, obviously, down the track for a drive-in, drive-out workforce. We've got, an active and open communication approach with the local community, and we're growing community funding with the right causes, and to obviously demonstrate commitment to in line with Chalice's values. So on the discovery of our new district here, you can see the exceptional Gonville discovery at the bottom left-hand side of that page is just the first one that we'll make in this belt. Gonville already has 500 drill holes in it over about 1.8 kilometres of strike length. It's open to the north, it goes without saying, and certainly it is a standalone deposit and world-class deposit in its own right. It's basically sticking out of the ground at the southern end, and there's at least 12 high-grade zones within it. 10 of those still remain open after a concerted 135,000 metres of drilling. We're still yet to close off those high-grade zones. We will be able to demonstrate, where it stands in the global rankings in terms of palladium endowment, but also nickel and copper endowment in October this year when we come out with the maiden resource for Gonville. So Hartog, the first of the targets, in that state forest area, no drill holes as yet. About 70 drill holes planned as a first pass in starting later this quarter, subject to our approval, which we anticipate is on track and coming next month or two. Then the other regional targets there, Baudin and Jans, we continue to do some moving loop ground EM work on those targets. Very exciting to see, obviously, soil anomalies and EM targets there, some 10 and 18 kilometres away from our discovery. So the next slide obviously summarises the intrusion, some of the recent drill holes, some of the recent results in our 12 high-grade zones. I mentioned 10 of those remain open, and also we've got over 100 high-grade intersections that basically need further drilling really to establish what zones they correspond to. Those have been following the discovery will know that it's not just high-grade mineralisation in this deposit, it's really a continuum of grade. The high-grade lenses are surrounded by disseminated sulphide mineralisation, that's grading anywhere from 0.5 gram to 2 grams per tonne, PGEs. And then sitting above fresh rock, you've got a 20 to 40 metre thick oxide layer, which again is very well endowed and very enriched in palladium particularly. So 500 drill holes, as I mentioned, 136,000 odd metres of the 160,000 metre first pass resource drilling program. I say first pass really because we're only constraining to the shallow parts of the system. We will continue to drill this for many years ahead, no doubt, to extend it beyond the 500 metres that we find at the moment. So some of the highlight intersections there recently, 15.4 metres at 7 grams palladium, 1.3 grams platinum, 0.6% nickel, 0.3% copper in our G2 zone. A new zone emerging there underneath the G8 zone with 9 metres at 3.6 grams palladium, 1.7% nickel and 0.7% copper. You can see all of the zones, they strike in the same orientation in that northeast direction. We've got the makings of a very significant deposit here and as I said, yet to close off those high-grade zones. The next slide looks at those zones in 3 dimensions over that 1.8 kilometres of strike length. You can see at least four of them are open to the north into that Julimar State Forest on the right-hand side of the page. Our new 12th high-grade zone, G12, there defined at the top of the page. What's significant about that G12 zone is that as we continue to drill to the northwest, sort of to the top of the page there, we keep finding stacked lenses and repeats of those lenses towards the northwest. And that's important because as we know from a couple of slides ago there, the Hartog target lies immediately within that Julimar State Forest. So we anticipate that that's what we're likely to see is continued stacked lenses as we go to the northwest. And obviously, we continue to find strike extensions to the northeast of many of those zones shown there. So you can see the strike extent and the dip extent of some of those zones, they are significant and they're deposits in their own right. The red zones, obviously those that are palladium, nickel, copper, cobalt rich, and orange zones there are the copper rich zones. A reasonably good, recent intercept there, 12 metres of 5 grams palladium, 0.5 copper in that G11 zone. So it demonstrates that there are some quite rich copper zones of mineralisation in our deposit as well. The next slide just shows some of the cross sections through, and you can see as you go from the top left, the southern end of Gonville, down to the northern end of Gonville, the bottom right, you can see really the drilling at the northern end, at the bottom two cross sections, is very limited. Those drill holes are really only down to 250. We expect that those high-grade lenses plunge underneath those holes, so expect to see a continuation of G1 through G9 there. They're plunging effectively below the limit of RC drilling at that end. And importantly, the zones are hanging together very nicely. It's a very robust geological model and interpretation we've got, and it's a very robust deposit. It's going to be amenable to very simple open cut mining techniques. The next slide, shows the gravity image over the Julimar State Forest and the Julimar complex on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, the airborne EM image with soil anomalies marked. You can see the gravity points to this coherent, continuous, mafic, ultramafic package, of which Gonville is just sort of on the margins of, on the southern end. Got at least a 10-kilometre continuous package there from that gravity image. And Hartog, being a significant, dense accumulation of rocks there, interpreted to be potentially the feeder for the system. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that there's some quite coherent nickel, copper soil anomalies, as well as at times palladium soil anomalies, continuing up to sort of 25 kilometres away from Gonville. So there's a lot of work ongoing there at Baudin, Jans. There is the ability to access some of the areas there from private farmland, and that work is continuing. But really the focus is on drilling Hartog there in the third quarter of this year. And as I said, that is certainly one to watch. On the next slide, the metallurgical test work we've done to date really demonstrates that, the high-grade mineralisation we found will be amenable to sequential flotation and a fairly conventional flow sheet. We are fortunate that the majority of the PGEs report to a copper concentrate. We're able to float that copper PGE gold concentrate off very readily and achieve very good metal recoveries and upgrade into copper con. Nickel PGE concentrate floats next, and we're able to get a good quantity of that nickel and about a quarter of the PGEs going into that nickel concentrate. We've had very good conversations with prospective customers for those two products already, and what was importantly, we're seeing low levels of deleterious elements, which means that penalties and deductions is likely to be minimal, and terms are likely to be very attractive. We also got some work underway on that oxide zone as well. The oxide is almost like a deposit in its own right and a project in its own right. So there's some effort going into there to work out the leach flow sheet and process that. So the timeline on the next slide, I guess, the key milestones coming up is obviously access to the state forest, anticipating getting approval there in September, drilling at least 2 or 3 of these small diamond rigs. We've got Gonville. We'll move those diamond rigs into the forest in September, start drilling at Hartog. There are a number of drill sites we can drill on existing tracks within the forest, so that bodes well to keep our disturbance to a minimum. And drilling, as it shows you there, RC and diamond drilling for resources, continue until the middle of Q4, at which point we'll start doing some geotech, some met drilling with the diamond rigs, and obviously ongoing metallurgical test work and variability analysis there. And as it shows there, October, we are going to be reporting the maiden resource for Gonville, and no doubt soon enough we'll be working on the second iteration, given that drilling will continue over that quarter. Scoping study is well underway. We are targeting first half of next year to do that. So what's most exciting, I think, in the pipeline on the next slide shows you the sort of scale and the potential of this new province, which we think is 200 kilometres along that margin of the Yilgarn Craton. It's not just obviously Chalice, vying for the next round of discoveries there. but we are certainly sitting on the lion's share and what we consider the most prospective parts of this new province. The Praton margins are well known to host the giant orthomagmatic nickel copper PGE systems, and that's certainly what Julimar is shaping up to be. So we expect that there's out of the hundreds of prospective intrusions we've interpreted along there, the vast majority are completely undrilled. So we suspect there will be more major discoveries coming from this province over the next few years. We are already seeing evidence of nickel copper PG soil anomalies some 300 kilometres to the north of Julimar around Barra. So that speaks to how exciting this province is from an exploration sense, and certainly lots of work to do over the next few years. So in summary, on the next slide, our Julimar discovery is shaping up, as I said, as a world-class strategic deposit of critical minerals. We have a huge amount of exploration upside in our portfolio, so not just within the Julimar complex, but within that wider West Yilgarn nickel copper PG province, which, as I said, is almost completely unexplored. We've got a major discovery, the province to go with it, a good balance sheet, and an excellent track record. So an exciting year ahead for Chalice and shareholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. We have a text question come in from Des Moriarty, who is in Adelaide. And Des says, thanks for the presentation. Given the Tier 1 status, I presume he meets jurisdiction here. Given the Tier 1 status, have you seen international interest in the deposit? If so, please elaborate.
Yeah, look, suffice to say, there's a huge amount of interest in our discovery. I guess, that emanated from the first drill hole we put in the project. That discovery hole all the way back in March of 2020. The inbounds we've had so far are obviously very much appreciated. We're getting inbounds from all over the planet, not just from the sort of usual suspects in Perth, but yeah, we're getting a lot of corporate interest, and for the time being, obviously, it's pleasing to see, but we have a job to do really to work out what we're sitting on in terms of the scale of Julimar and the system itself. So we intend to sort of keep the head down and keep drilling holes, keep demonstrating that the world-class nature of our discovery, and certainly don't want to get distracted with too many corporate engagements or anything like that.
Great, thanks very much, Alex. Do we have any other questions from the room today? I presume we've got the capability of asking. No, okay, well, we'll leave it there. Alex, thank you very much. I hope to see you back in WA soon, and all the best.
Thanks,
Please
Paul.
thank Alex, guys.